This is the Australia Report with Vic Alhadeff. Good day, mate.
Vic Alhadeff, a very, very good morning to you. I hope you are well.
Good morning, Howard. Yeah, I am indeed. Thank you. Thanks. Good to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. And I was very, very relieved to see that there's been a little bit of a turn in the case against the Sydney nurses who allegedly threatened to kill Israeli patients. Tell us what happened here.
Yes. So just to go back to remind listeners. So last year, global headlines were made when two nurses at one of our hospitals here in Sydney engaged with an Israeli influencer, as he's called, Max Ilinsky, also known as another name, Max Vafer, and he recorded them allegedly threatening violence against any Israeli patients who come to that hospital. And in the video, one of the nurses allegedly suggests that he had sent Israeli patients, quote, to hell, unquote, while the other nurse said that she would kill Israelis rather than treat them if they come to the hospital. And this went around the world. Last month, so in June, 6 weeks ago or so, it came, the first court case, the first hearing regarding this came to the court, and the judge ruled that the video was inadmissible and could not form part of the evidence against the nurses because the Israeli had recorded it without their permission, and it was a private conversation, and he had done so in Israel. And so now this has now gone to the Supreme Court, where three judges listened to the case, and the public prosecutor took it to the Supreme Court. And the three judges have now handed down exactly what you just said, that the video should be reintroduced into evidence, because without it, they said, a jury could not reach a fair and fully informed decision at the trial. Quote, in the absence of this video, the Crown case is very, very much weakened, they said. And the prosecutor also reminded the court that the Israeli recorded the conversation in Israel where it's legal to do so. And the nurse's barrister said that regardless of where the Israeli was, the conversation occurred at least in part in Sydney, where it should be subject to local law. Nevertheless, the court has found that the video can be used as evidence, and even though it was recorded secretly, and so that court case is now due to happen at the end of this month, with this video very much part of the evidence.
I think the repercussions of not allowing it to be included would have been really, really significant in that it certainly would appear not to serve the ends of justice here.
Well, speaking as a non-lawyer, I can only agree with that. And it's important also just to round out the picture that both nurses have pleaded not guilty to using a carriage service to menace, harass, or offend. And one of the nurses has pleaded not guilty to an additional charge of threatening violence to any particular group. And both nurses have been stood down from their jobs by the New South Wales Health Department, which means that they are, and for 2 years, they are banned from working in any government health, in other words, in any public hospital for the next 2 years.
What would be interesting to know is, and I don't know if anybody's looked at it, is who is funding their defence, because that in of itself should be fairly telling with regard to who is standing behind them.
That is an interesting point. Another point, actually not unconnected, is that last week, and the Royal Commission is obviously, in full train, and last week people gave evidence from the health sector, and alarmingly, so many Jewish people who gave evidence have said how they are afraid, nervous, terrified to go into hospitals, and typically you are asked to put down your religion. Now, what that has to do with getting good health care is another discussion. but it came out and obviously referencing anti-Semitism generally that's been happening, and specifically this particular case, which is alleged that people are declining to identify as Jewish if they go into hospitals for all these reasons.
It's so. Let's just also talk about the Royal Commission. They are focusing, talking about the protests outside the Sydney Opera House. That was on October the 9th, 2023, and that really was the first sign that those of us in other parts of the world would have, maybe even in Australia, you would have that. Maybe there was something dangerous beneath the surface.
Indeed, and that block, that's now the current block of the Royal Commission, that began today, this particular one, where the focus is on protests, and specifically exactly one, the October 9 outside the Opera House, and also a neo-Nazi one just a few months ago. So the one outside October 9, so just to go back, on October 8, and this has not received much attention, there was, and this has been filmed, where there was a small rally in one of the western suburbs, where, in other words, an Islamic group, where one of the Islamic leaders was filmed saying, quote unquote, I'm elated, talking about October 7. This is 24 hours later. But then on October 9, so 48 hours after October 7, there was a mob outside. They were planning to start their demonstration outside Sydney Town Hall, which is in the centre of the city. And then when they heard that the state government, the government of New South Wales, the Premier had announced that the sails of the Sydney Opera House would be painted in blue and white out of support for the Jewish community, support for Israel after October 7, that's when the mob decided to walk from the Sydney Town Hall to the Opera House. And exactly as you say, and what went down at the Opera House, and I've been listening to evidence today, it's all live streamed, the Royal Commission. And the police have been giving evidence, and the current president of the Board of Deputies have been giving evidence, where what happened there, the only person who was arrested outside that Opera House was somebody with an Israeli flag, not any other flags being set alight, or the fact that people chanted, where's the Jews specifically, and other choice. They weren't saying, where the Jews because they wanted to hand over, waffles and ice cream. So it's that really, exactly as you say, seemed to be the beginning of this absolute tsunami of anti-Semitism which we've been experiencing for close to 3 years now. And that is what is the focus of the current Royal Commission hearing is. Also, a few months ago, a neo-Nazi protest outside the Parliament House here in Sydney, where 50 or 60 Nazis in regalia with their faces uncovered, and there were speeches, stood outside the Parliament House here in Sydney. And so those are the two focuses of the current block of the Royal Commission.
Absolutely unbelievable. And this will, of course, continue. We will keep abreast of everything happening there. Vic Alhadeff, thank you, as always.